Throughout history, countless narratives have woven the fabric of our collective past, but few are as poignant and complex as the stories from the Arab-Muslim slave trade. Spanning over a millennium, this trade saw millions of souls traversing deserts and seas from the heart of Africa to the bustling markets of Baghdad and beyond. It was a world where the fate of many was determined by the few sultans and traders wielding immense power, and the resilience and spirit of the enslaved left a lasting legacy. Today, we embark on a journey through time, uncovering the stories of those who lived, suffered, and survived. From the grand palaces of emperors to the forgotten whispers of the enslaved, we delve into the depths of a trade that shaped nations and altered the course of history. Join us as we unveil the tales of sorrow and strength, of humanity lost and dignity reclaimed, in From Sultans to Enslaved People. Stories from the Arab-Muslim slave trade. Historical context and duration. The Arab-Muslim slave trade was not confined to a single path, but was a vast network of routes sprawling across continents. It stretched from the heart of Africa, through the unforgiving Sahara, to the opulent cities of the Middle East and beyond. This trade connected disparate worlds, from the lush rainforests of Central Africa to the arid dunes of the Arabian desert, and the vibrant markets of Istanbul, Baghdad, and Cairo. Each route tells a story of hardship and survival, of cultures colliding and fusing in the caravans that plied these paths. The trade routes were arteries of commerce, conduits of cultural exchange, and, tragically, channels of human despair. As we trace these paths, we visualize not just the geography, but the human stories etched into the landscape. Stories of those who walked these routes not by choice, but by force, their legacies lingering in the sands and cities that once thrived on this trade. For over 12 centuries, the Arab-Muslim slave trade cast a long shadow over Africa, the Middle East, and beyond. It began in the 7th century, not long after the advent of Islam, reaching its zenith in the medieval period and persisting in various forms until the early 20th century. This enduring trade witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the birth of new nations, and the relentless march of time. Throughout this period, generations of Africans were uprooted from their homes, their destinies rewritten by the insatiable demand for labor and luxury in distant lands. The longevity of this trade is a testament to its deep integration into the economies and societies of the regions it touched. It was a complex system sustained by a network of traders, intermediaries, and rulers, each playing a role in a trade that thrived on human exploitation. As we reflect on this extensive period, we are reminded of the countless lives altered by this trade, the cultures transformed, and the indelible marks it left on the world. The timeline of the Arab-Muslim slave trade is not just a series of dates, but a chronicle of human endurance, a saga of survival against the odds. Trade mechanics. The mechanics of the Arab-Muslim slave trade were as intricate as they were vast, involving a complex network of routes, markets, and human lives. Caravans laden with goods and enslaved people traversed the harsh Sahara, braving the relentless sun and treacherous sands. Dhows sailed the monsoon winds along the Swahili coast, carrying human cargo alongside ivory and gold. The trade was fueled by a demand for labor in agriculture, military, domestic service, and concubinage, with enslaved people sourced from as far as the African interior and transported to markets in Baghdad, Damascus, and Cairo. The journey was brutal and unforgiving, with many succumbing to the harsh conditions long before they reached their destinations. Those who survived faced a life of uncertainty, their fate hinging on the whims of their captors. The trade was not merely a transfer of humans, but a complex economic system that involved negotiation, barter, and the exchange of goods and currency. It was underpinned by beliefs and laws that justified and perpetuated the practice, weaving it into the social and economic fabric of the societies involved. As we delve into the mechanics of this trade, we uncover the harsh realities of the journey, the lives bartered and sold, and the profound human cost of this vast enterprise. Stories of the enslaved. In the vast expanse of the Arab-Muslim slave trade, every enslaved individual carried a unique story, a personal saga set against the backdrop of a sprawling and often cruel trade. These were men, women, and children torn from their homes, uprooted from the life they knew, and thrust into a world of uncertainty and hardship. Some were captured during raids and wars, and others were traded amongst tribes or sold to settle debts. Their stories take us through the dense forests of Central Africa, across the unforgiving Sahara, and into the heart of bustling cities where their fates were traded. We hear tales of despair and sorrow, but also of resilience and courage. There are accounts of enduring friendships formed in the chains of bondage, of love that defied the harshness of their reality, and of unbreakable spirits that dreamed of freedom. These narratives are not just chronicles of suffering, but are testaments to the indomitable will to survive and the hope for a better tomorrow. As we listen to these personal accounts, we are reminded of the profound human cost of the slave trade, a reminder that behind every transaction and treaty were lives forever changed. Diversity of experience. The experiences of the enslaved in the Arab-Muslim slave trade were as diverse as their origins. While many endured back-breaking labor in fields and mines, others found themselves in domestic servitude in the homes of the wealthy. Some, particularly women, were forced into concubinage, their bodies no longer their own. Yet there were those who, through a combination of skill, luck, or favor, rose to positions of influence and power, becoming administrators, soldiers, or even trusted advisors. This diversity of experience reflects the complex social and economic structures of the time, where the needs and whims of the market could alter one's fate. It also speaks to the adaptive and resilient nature of the human spirit, as individuals navigated the treacherous waters of their circumstances, each carving out a path of survival or, in rare cases, ascent. These varied experiences shed light on the intricate tapestry of life within the slave trade, illustrating not just the commonality of suffering, but also the nuances of individual lives and destinies. Resistance and resilience. Amidst the oppression and despair of the Arab-Muslim slave trade, stories of resistance and resilience emerged as beacons of the human spirit's refusal to be broken. Enslaved individuals and groups often resisted their captivity and treatment in whatever ways they could, from subtle acts of defiance and sabotage to outright rebellion. Some fled, braving the unknown in search of freedom. Their stories etched into the landscape as routes of escape and tales of pursuit. Communities of runaways formed, creating their societies on the fringes of the world that had rejected them. These acts of resistance were not just physical, but also cultural, as the enslaved clung to their identities, languages, and beliefs, passing them down through generations as an act of defiance against their erasure. The resilience of the enslaved is a testament to their strength and determination, a reminder that even in the darkest times, the human spirit can endure and resist. The rulers and traders. In the sprawling narrative of the Arab-Muslim slave trade, specific figures loom large, casting long shadows over history. These were the sultans, emirs, and wealthy merchants whose fortunes and fates were inextricably linked to the trade of human lives. They built opulent palaces, led grand armies, and controlled vast territories, all underpinned by the economic engine of slavery. Some rulers were known for their strategic insight, others for their ruthless efficiency, and others for their patronage of arts and culture. Yet, regardless of their legacies, they all played a part in perpetuating a system that commodified people. This section delves into the lives of these influential individuals, exploring their motivations, daily lives, and their impact on the trade and the wider world. Through their stories, we gain insight into the complexities of power, the moral ambiguities of their time, and the human cost of their pursuit of wealth and dominance. Economic and political motives. The Arab-Muslim slave trade was driven by a complex interplay of economic and political motives deeply rooted in the societies that engaged in it. Economically, enslaved people were a commodity that could be exploited for labor, traded for goods, or used to display wealth and status. They worked in fields and mines, served in households and harems, and filled the ranks of armies and navies. Politically, trade was a tool for building empires, forging alliances, and controlling territories and trade routes. It was also a means of displaying power and prestige, as owning a large number of enslaved people was a status symbol among the elite. This section explores the economic and political landscapes that shaped the trade, examining how the demand for enslaved people influenced regional politics, financial strategies, and social structures. It also considers the impact of trade on the economies and political systems of the supplying and receiving regions, shedding light on the far-reaching consequences of this vast enterprise. Contrasting lives. The Arab-Muslim slave trade created worlds apart within the same society, with the lives of the rulers and traders starkly contrasting with those of the enslaved. On one end were the opulent lifestyles of the elite, filled with luxury, power, and excess. They lived in grand palaces, adorned with the finest materials, and served by many enslaved people. Their days were filled with strategic decisions, lavish entertainments, and displays of wealth and power. On the other end were the lives of the enslaved, marked by hardship, toil, and the constant struggle for dignity and survival. They lived in conditions that ranged from modest servitude to brutal labor, always at the mercy of their owners' whims. This section paints a vivid picture of these contrasting worlds, exploring the daily lives, hopes, and fears of rulers and the enslaved. It highlights the stark disparities in their experiences, reflecting on the deep inequalities and human costs embedded in the fabric of the slave trade. The legacy of the trade. The Arab-Muslim slave trade left an indelible mark on the cultures and societies it touched, weaving a complex tapestry of influence and change that persists to this day. In the lands where enslaved people were taken, communities were fragmented and demographic landscapes were altered, leading to lasting social and cultural shifts. In the regions where they were brought, the enslaved brought their languages, traditions, and beliefs, subtly influencing their new home's music, cuisine, and customs. Over centuries, these contributions melded with local cultures, creating rich, hybrid traditions that testify to the mingled histories of these regions. This section explores the cultural legacies of the slave trade, examining how the forced movement of people led to the diffusion of ideas, art forms, and cultural practices. It reflects on the resilience of cultural identity and how the enslaved managed to preserve and adapt their heritage in the face of adversity, leaving a legacy that transcends the brutality of their circumstances. Modern descendants. The descendants of those involved in the Arab-Muslim slave trade carry with them the stories, the pain, and the legacy of their ancestors. For many, these are personal histories of loss and survival, and tales handed down through generations that shape their identity and worldview. In communities across Africa, the Middle East, and beyond, the descendants of the enslaved and the traders live side by side, their histories intertwined by the centuries-old trade. This section delves into the stories of these descendants, exploring how they reconcile with their past, preserve their heritage, and navigate the complexities of their identities. It highlights initiatives to trace ancestry, recover lost histories, and foster community dialogue and understanding. Through their stories, we gain insight into the lasting human impact of the slave trade, the ongoing quest for healing and reconciliation, and how the past continues to influence the present. The echoes of the Arab-Muslim slave trade are not confined to history books, but resonate in the present, raising questions about memory, responsibility, and justice. Today, the trade is remembered and memorialized in various ways, from scholarly works to public monuments, each contributing to a broader understanding and acknowledgement of this dark chapter in history. However, the legacy of the trade also surfaces in contemporary discussions about race, identity, and inequality as societies grapple with the long-term effects of centuries of human exploitation. This section examines the continued relevance of the slave trade, discussing how it informs current debates about historical injustices, reparations, and the ongoing struggle against racism and discrimination. It also highlights the efforts of individuals and organizations working to educate the public, preserve the memory of the victims, and promote a future of reconciliation and understanding. Conclusion: as our journey through the stories of the Arab-Muslim slave trade ends, we are left with a profound sense of the vastness and depth of this chapter in human history. We have traversed deserts and seas, delved into the lives of sultans and enslaved people, and reflected on the enduring legacies of a trade that shaped nations and altered destinies. We've seen the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable hardship and the complexity of societies built on the backs of the enslaved. Though filled with pain and injustice, this history is also a testament to the strength and endurance of those who lived through it and their lasting impact on the world. As we reflect on the stories shared, let us remember that the history of the Arab-Muslim slave trade is not just a tale of bygone eras, but a narrative that continues to influence the present. It challenges us to confront our past's uncomfortable truths, seek understanding and reconciliation, and ensure that the lessons learned are never forgotten. Let us honor the memory of those who suffered by continuing to explore, educate, and engage with this history, carrying forward the legacy of resilience and hope that they have left us. In the spirit of understanding and remembrance, we invite you to continue exploring the history of the Arab-Muslim slave trade and its lasting impacts. Visit museums and memorials, read the works of scholars and the stories of descendants, and engage in conversations about the past and its relevance to our present and future. By learning and reflecting on this history, we contribute to a world that values empathy, justice, and a shared understanding of our complex past. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and may the stories of resilience and hope inspire us all. Thank you for watching From Sultans to Slaves, Stories from the Arab-Muslim Slave Trade. Your engagement and willingness to learn about this complex history are invaluable. Please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Stay tuned for more explorations into the rich tapestry of our shared past.